Have you ever felt like you were meant for something more, but at the same time felt completely unqualified for it? If so, you're going to want to hear the story of John and the battle he almost never fought. John grew up in a quiet West African town where faith wasn't debated, was just lived. Every morning began with prayer. Every evening ended with scripture, and every big decision was brought before God. From the time he was a boy, John believed. Not in a loud or dramatic way, but with a quiet sincerity. What made John different wasn't how much he spoke, but how deeply he listened. People noticed it early on. When John prayed, there was a certain weight to his words. When he spoke, there was a clarity that cut through the noise. The elders in his community would often say, "This boy hears God." But John never saw himself that way. He felt ordinary, too quiet, too unsure, and painfully aware of all his weaknesses. He felt a deep connection to the story of Gideon from the Bible, a man who was hiding from his enemies, full of self-doubt, even questioning God's choice to use him. John saw himself in that story. He thought, if God could use someone like Gideon, maybe, just maybe, there was hope for him too. But here's the crucial detail John missed. Gideon doubted, but he never disconnected from God. John doubted, and he slowly began to withdraw. As John got older, life got heavier, responsibilities piled up, expectations from others rose. And with all that came an immense pressure. The more people affirmed the gift they saw in him, the more uncomfortable he became. And that's when another voice started to whisper in his ear. A subtle, convincing voice. It said things like, "You're not strong enough for this. You'll fail if you try." God gives big assignments to bold people, not to someone quiet like you. It's safer to just stay silent. You see, the devil didn't attack John with some obvious, glaring sin. No, the attack was far more cunning. It was fear, cleverly disguised as wisdom and humility. John started to shrink his obedience. He began to avoid any kind of leadership role. He'd turn down opportunities to speak or pray in public. When the church needed teachers, he stayed in his seat. When people came to him seeking counsel, he would point them to someone else. He told himself he was just being humble. But here is a truth we all need to grasp. Humility that silences your God-given obedience is unhumility at all. It's fear. Just like Gideon hiding in the winepress, John was hiding. Not from physical enemies, but from his own God-given purpose. And the devil was patient. Years went by. On the outside, John looked like a faithful man. But his greatest strength, that unique ability to hear, to discern, and to speak truth, was buried deep under a mountain of fear. He was stuck. His Bible was open on his lap, but he wasn't reading. His heart just felt heavy. He knew he wasn't backsliding in the traditional sense, but he also knew he wasn't moving forward. He was stagnant. Then his eyes fell on a familiar passage in the book of Judges. Chapter 6. It was the moment the angel appeared to Gideon and said, "The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor." John paused. He'd read those words 100 times before, but tonight they felt deeply personal. He remembered how Gideon argued back, how he listed all his weaknesses, how he questioned the calling, and yet God never changed his declaration. God didn't wait for Gideon to be brave to call him mighty. He finally understood the enemy's strategy. The devil had taken John's greatest strength, his sensitivity to God's voice, and twisted it into a crippling insecurity. What God had designed for spiritual discernment, the devil had turned into anxious overthinking. And with that peace came a simple, unshakable conviction. Obey, even if you're afraid. Just like Gideon, John started small. He accepted a small responsibility at his church. He spoke up in a meeting when his fear screamed at him to stay quiet. He offered to pray for someone, even though his palms were sweating. Every single step felt uncomfortable. It felt awkward, but every step also felt right. The fear didn't magically disappear overnight, but it lost its authority over him. It was no longer the one in the driver's seat. Over time, through these small, consistent acts of obedience, people's lives began to change. Not because John was a loud, charismatic speaker, but because he was faithful. Not because he was oozing with self-confidence, but because he decided to trust God more than he trusted his fear. John never became famous. His name was never in lights. But he became available to God. And in the economy of the kingdom, that availability made all the difference. John's story is a powerful reminder for all of us. The enemy's most effective tactic often isn't to pull believers away from God completely. It's to convince them to doubt what God has already said about them. But when God calls you mighty, fear does not get the final word. So if you're listening to this right now and you feel unqualified, uncertain, or afraid, and that voice telling you to stay small, to play it safe, to hide your light, that voice is not from Him. Thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, please consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content that encourages and builds you up in your faith journey.